Amanda, good
Hi.
morning.
Hi, Chris.
So December 3rd has become one of the most important days to me. And the reason that is because two of my the most important women in my life, my wife and my assistant, have birthdays today. So I
My
cannot,
sister's
yeah.
birthday is today.
I what I
That's
would
crazy.
I'm like, Daz, when's your birthday? She's like, December 3rd. I'm like, well, that sounds familiar. I'm like, well, that's my wife's
Wait a
birthday.
second. That date's ringing a bell.
I know. So we opened some presents, my wife and I, this morning, and then and then
Aw.
Des, when I get to the office this afternoon, we'll do something for her. So big
December
day,
3rd.
December
Yeah,
3rd. How you doing?
I'm good. I managed to actually unplug a little bit for Thanksgiving. I
Good.
put my phone like in the other room and I only picked it up maybe a few times just for non-work related things. And it was amazing. I read a ton
Good.
and my son kicked my butt in chess. My son and my
Nice.
husband are kind of obsessed with chess right now. And
You watching the Queen's Gambit?
oh, I,
No. Yes.
yeah, been
Okay.
there. I binge watched that
It's good. It's good.
actually on Halloween. I stayed home and I just binge watched the Queen's Gambit. Great Halloween.
Cool.
But yeah, it's been really fun. It's just like, learning how to do more things around the house that aren't, screen related or
Yeah.
new things. So that was really fun. How about you?
It's good. No, we've just been relaxing, and we did a Zoom Thanksgiving, and that was entertaining. Watching my 76-year-old dad try to work an iPad. That was I could have just recorded that and put that on YouTube, and
I
that could have gone viral.
know.
But
Well, yeah.
yeah, no, and I'm excited about today. I am so excited about our guest.
Me too.
I think it's going to be really great for all of our listeners and just kind of dig into her brain and everything like that. But Amanda, do you want to do the intro?
Sure,
By
sure.
the way, our guests are getting better because our bios are getting longer.
Also, I feel like Kelsey has a lot to do with
I
that.
know, I know. Props to
Kelsey's
Kelsey.
crushing it.
Yep.
Well, Charlene DeCesare is the founder of a unique sales advisory firm called Fireworks Sales. She's been in a sales leader and trusted advisor for 25 years with a specialty in helping sellers of high value services like real estate grow their business in a way that is real easy and very powerful. She's also a certified brain-based success coach, a certified sales leader, and she wrote the book on sales outreach called The Email Cemetery, where bad emails go to die and how to resuscitate yours. I love the title of
I
that
can't wait to
book.
talk about that.
Thank you for joining us today, Charlene, all the way from New Hampshire, right? What time is it there?
Yes, it is 10 a.m. So we're perfect.
Awesome.
The coffee has settled in.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, Charlene, why don't you just kind of give our reader? I mean, you obviously have this amazing. It looks like you went to Emerson College, and then you did your sales and marketing at is it Revere University, like Paul Revere? Like,
Yeah, Riviera. Yeah.
Revere, yeah. Why don't you just give our listeners a little background on kind of how you got into, become this sales master in what we're going to learn today?
Yeah, it's funny. We were chatting before about social media, and I mentioned that I've been doing a lot on TikTok. And so what happens when you get more popular on TikTok, of course, then you get all the like crazy people too that will comment. And so someone commented and said, "Who made you the god of emails?" And so I replied back with a video where I said, "Well, actually, I'm the queen of emails." And it is hard won, I'll tell you what. So I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been in sales. I've had multi-million dollar quotas. The last year I worked in corporate, my quota was $38 million a year. And I wasn't selling real estate. So it wasn't, it was very hard one in small increments. But, when you think about this idea of having to really create your own destiny and sell in order to eat in that case. But also I've been in sales leadership. I've been on the marketing side, and I've been part of building companies from scratch. So I was at a company called Gartner for a big chunk of my
I saw that.
And I left there. I remember being a Gartner and saying things like, "You don't pay me enough for this crap," because I was doing comp plans and all kinds of nonsense. And then when I started my own business, I was crying in my Cheerios saying, "They paid me enough. They paid me enough." So
I got to clock in and clock out.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
like when they paid me when I didn't go to work, like what was that? Totally different experience, So
It is.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, sales is. I just, I just got into this business 3 years ago, and I had never been in sales before. My mom was like, "Oh, you should get into sales. You'd kill it." But there is like that feeling of, you don't get a constant paycheck. You got to go out there and make your money. I mean, you're 100% commission, and there is a little bit of that, dipping your feet in that water. That can be scary for sure.
So how did you find that this was your thing and that you really had a niche, like a talent for building all these huge businesses and creating all these sales? I mean, obviously you have an amazing system behind it, process, I guess.
It's really, everything, it really comes down to principles instead of steps and scripts. Working in corporate, we had every sales trainer you can imagine, any book you read on sales that has a system, 5 steps to whatever. Those
the 7 steps of highly effective people. What is that?
Or like those, they tell you to like do these certain things and then say like, have you been eaten by an alligator? To get your prospect's attention, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And never did I suck more in sales than when I tried to take someone else's steps and scripts and say it their way. It just felt so awful and I couldn't do it, So really the truth is I'm a rebel. And I do say a lot of the time that revenue cures a lot of sins. And the only reason I got away with things is because I was booking the business. So what could they say? That I wasn't following the rules. And they used to joke that it was like the hey dude method of selling, on some level.
Wait, what is it? Now go into that. So like, hey dude, like, what is that?
Yeah, I just would call people and have conversations. Okay. Like I wasn't following a script, I just really cared about them. I was really listening to them. Go figure.
You were coming from a place that was authentic to you and your style and the way that you like to do things. I feel like so often in sales, especially high earners in sales, they get pigeonholed into doing things certain ways because maybe the top coach in the industry likes them to do that. But I mean, I went through a lot of different coaching programs and I kind of that were real estate related and then also just entrepreneurial related. And I really found that nothing really fit me because I also definitely identify with being a rebel. So,
right.
So let's go into your principle based, like sales approach, right? Coming from I guess maybe dive in a little bit into your process.
Yeah, and also real quick, Charlene, too, to kind of piggyback on what Amanda was talking earlier, being authentic. I'd love to hear more about that, like, the importance of being authentic and being yourself and being that rebel and not, here's a script and you're like, I can't read this.
You can only be a rebel if you're authentically a rebel.
That's right. There you go.
That's right.
Like you're like, oh, being a rebel works. Cool. I'm gonna go be a rebel today. It's like, no, that's not authentic to you. It's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's like, I tell this story this started when I was like 4 years old and I'm trying to get like literally put a round peg into a square hole and I'm banging the crap out of that thing. And my dad came over and he's like, if you're forcing it, if you have to force it that much, you're doing it wrong, and this
Great
is advice. If you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong. And I'll tell you what, it helped me through marriages or divorces, so many things in my life. I've gone back to that principle of if you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong. And if it feels bad to you, if you don't want to make that call because you feel like icky salesy or someone's asking you to say certain words or be a certain way, it doesn't feel natural to you, then it's not the right way for you. And so it's really being intuitive to what feels good to you. Because let's face it, life is short. Like you shouldn't hate your job, whether you work for yourself or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I love about working with realtors, for example, is they love what they do, right? Like they just love it. They wake up, they're motivated, they're willing to work all those hours when other people aren't working. And to do that, you have to feel great about it. And so that's sort of the starting point is trusting your gut. And it's the same thing with people you choose to work with.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody doesn't feel right, if you get a bad feeling about somebody, and you probably had these experiences where you didn't listen to that feeling, and then later on you're like, I knew it. I knew they were going to be a pain in the neck.
I remember getting into the business. Everybody's like, well, you can't tell them you're new. I'm like, all right, well, I can't tell them I'm new, but I am new and I don't know anything yet. So I'm like, I don't want to lie to them. So I like my script was, I just joined the team here in Fort Collins. So that was kind of how I spun it a little bit to sound like I wasn't like, hey, I'm just brand new, give me business. So
Well, and here's the thing. One of the core principles that I teach and I follow is it's not about me ever. It's always about the people I serve. So it doesn't matter if you're new or not, because really every conversation is about them and you're so focused on them and who they are and what they need, that whether something like that's a perfect example. Like it really should be, it shouldn't even really come up, right? Because it's not that you want their business. It's not about you. It's that they have a need and they need someone who's going to take care of them in a unique way, and who's going to think about, all of their goals, not just today, but in the future, and do the best job they can to make those goals and those dreams come alive.
Yeah, and it's almost like like everybody hates sounding salesy, but sending an email just saying, hey, I just want to check in and see how you're doing and make sure you don't have any additional questions. Like I send that email, and I'd love to get your take on that, and we'll dive into emails later. But I do that all the time, and I get good responses. Like, thanks, Chris, for checking in. We appreciate it. I'm not selling them on anything. All I'm simply doing is just saying hi, and that I'm still here for you and I still remember you. But
yep. And the good to great moment on that, see, we'll do some live coaching here. The good to great moment. So the intention is there. And so that's the important part. So that's one of the actually, it's principle number one is I'm clear on my intention before every interaction. And so your intention in that situation is simply so that they know you're thinking about them, that you do care about them, that they are top of mind, and you don't have any other ulterior motive, for example.
Yeah.
In another instance, the goal or the intention might be to get a conversation, right? But for example, in an email, you're never selling. Anybody who's trying to send an email and sell, like, I can help you, blah, 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 they're already behind, right? So, but the good to great moment with that, I'm just following up email, because I means it's about you, not them. Just is actually what we call a kneecap word or a minimizer word. So when people use the word just, it means they don't actually believe that they should be reaching out, or they're sort of feeling like they're doing something wrong. And so there's head trash that's revealed with the word just. It's a diminishing word. And then I wanted to, well, we know you wanted to because you're doing it.
You're doing it.
Like that's
all the words.
Right.
I love that you're tearing this apart.
No, it's good. I'm like writing these notes. I'm like,
it's a coaching moment because it's like people say, well, what the, again, like on TikTok, I did a video about this, but like, well, I'm going to show you what I want. It's like, great, but you're not going to sell, you could sell less.
It's not going to be the most effective use of the words or your time.
Yeah. So that's why I say it's a good to great moment. It's fine to say what you just said.
Yeah.
And it works for you. And also, if then you switch that around to make it about them and true to your intention, instead of saying I wanted to, because then just do it and say, when we met, it struck me that you really cared a lot about, that you really were in a caretaking position. And so I was thinking about you and what this must be like for you right now during the holidays. If there's anything I can do to help you, please call me. We can do X, Y, Z,
gotcha.
blah, 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 right? But you start with like this connecting point.
Right.
And it's really 3 steps. This is a sales methodology, I guess, that I didn't create. And it does usually help. So the first thing is to resonate. So you want to resonate with them on something they care about. And then later on, you can differentiate and substantiate. Right. But most of the time, the communications like the just checking in, just following up, introduction, you're just trying to resonate. That's all you're trying to do.
Now, to play devil's advocate, Charlene, like how many people don't even do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, how many people like, oh, I never followed up. Like
100%.
Even if you do it wrong, is it better than not doing it at all?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the follow-up, we know on average, it takes between 7 and 12 touches to get it. Someone even actually takes 5 to 8 to even get them to talk to you. And then several more to close a deal. Right. So you have to follow up. You have to be professionally persistent. And what happens is it's like an internal and an external reason why I'm just following up, why I work on that a lot, because you could send that message and be ahead of the game and follow up once, but then like when they don't respond and you have to follow up again, your head trash is going to start to get in the way. Like, okay, now what do I say? Like, do I
Right.
follow up again? Like, am I just checking it again? And then what happens is you start sending messages that say, sorry to bother you, or I'm not trying to be a
Just checking
pest,
in.
Just
right?
checking it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's setting yourself up for success in a way that really it does create a process for you. But it's kind of like I tell, like my husband's a pool player. And the way I play pool is I just kind of, hit the ball as hard as I can and hope something goes in. And you know what? I get lucky some of the time because sometimes I know what I'm doing the first shot.
Hmm.
But then after that, like I don't really know what I'm doing anymore. And then my husband will come in and he's planned out 5 shots in a row and he wins the game, because he's like boom, 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 boom. So you have to decide, do you want to get a shot, get a ball in the hole, or do you want to win the game? Following up will get you a ball in the hole, and that's worth something.
Yeah.
If you want to win the game, like I said, those good to great moments, it's worth being thoughtful and intentional and thinking about who you serve and what is speaking to them versus just about you and what you want.
I really love that.
You
Thoughtful
know,
and intentional. So
yeah.
resonate, differentiate, and
And then substantiate.
substantiate. I feel like we just got like a mini communications lesson.
No,
Keep it
like
coming, sister.
I'm gonna listen to this back again and just tear apart my intro sentence or whatever
Well,
that
maybe
was.
now would be a really
I-
good time to get into. Can you tell us about your book?
I can, yes.
I want to
So the
Oh,
email
it's so
cemetery.
pretty.
It is. I love that.
So quick side story. This is another lesson. I have this sign on my wall, be you, the world will adjust.
Yeah.
When I got book covers designed, I had, 99 designs or one of those websites.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Right. So, and I got all these different things. And then you're supposed to survey your friends and other people to see what they think is the best book cover. I loved this the moment I saw it. And then all the other ones were like, business books, kind of like the orange with the white text. And
Yeah.
most people said, oh no, you need a business book cover because people won't take you seriously or they won't whatever. And you know what? I'm so glad I listened to my gut and I put my foot in the sand. I just said, this is it.
Good for you.
So anyway, so that's another example where trust, what resonates with you and it's your life, your business. Sometimes just you got to do your thing. But the book is because maybe I need a different hobby. I don't know. But for whatever reason, every time I get an email from someone, I was in this habit of analyzing, just how bad the sales emails were, So I started doing a blog where I was writing, just like getting those emails that said like, sorry to bother you. I'm like, you poor thing. You must not know how valuable you are. If you're apologizing to me, right, you poor thing, and then, the just following up. So the me, my name is, my title is, here's how great I am. Here's a testimonial about me. Like, so I started just taking those apart and diagnosing them and created a page that just said, this is where bad sales emails go to die. And a publisher saw that and said, that's very marketable. If you wanted to write a book, we can help you write a book or get your book published. And it's become like its own brand. It's crazy. But
So that is so cool. So I got a couple of like email questions that, real estate agents and lenders, sadly, we try to get off my email as much as possible, but it's such a huge part of communicating that I don't know if you'll ever get rid of it, but there's definitely a better way to do it, like we've been talking about. So I was just curious on this whole topic, taking away from you and putting more about them and bring it to them. But this is just a simple little question, but subject lines. Like, what do you put in subject lines? And I have done my own things just because I have my whole, Amanda's seen my lead list. It's this Excel spreadsheet. And I put notes in there too. So like if I reach out, I go, hey, how was your wedding last month or something like that? And that's great because I'm like, oh my God, you remembered our wedding and all this stuff. And that's been good. But I'm always curious about I'll do hi, Jessica as the subject line or checking in or follow up, things I probably shouldn't do. But how do you approach that? Like a subject line and kind of getting people, because I feel like that's the first thing they read. And if you want to bring them into your email and your message, that's an important part of that.
Yeah, and with everything, by the way, that I talk about, context and relationship always matters. You can get away with more the more someone has already reached that point of trusting, knowing,
Mhm.
liking, and trusting you. Early on, though, that principle about making it about them is the most important. So the subject line, is it something that they care about?
Right.
So if it's your beach house, or something
Okay.
that sort of speaks to, like, if you're them, right?
Your
So it's
your
almost
home
like
search.
you have to do like a Freaky Friday thing where you pretend you're them as a unique individual, and you think, like, what are they thinking about, searching for, hoping someone will solve. This is where, I think, working with realtors, one of the biggest obstacles that realtors have in terms of their approach is that they're way too broad. And I can't tell you the number of people when I've said, "Oh, who's your ideal, buyer or seller?" And like, "Oh, anyone looking to buy or sell a home," right? And so when you're trying to sell to anyone, you're selling to no one, and that's an old saying, but it's
Mhm.
100% true. And the benefit of knowing exactly who your ideal buyer or seller is, down to their deepest persona, their thoughts and feelings, is that then when you go to write an email and it's not about you, it's about them, you can write something really cool. If maybe you work with buyers who have a real spiritual side,
Mhm.
and your subject line could be, "Have you balanced your chakras today?" Or, like, or the secret, the solution to balancing your root chakra, because root chakra is the home, right? It's home and security and physical things. So that's what I mean. If you can find something that's going to resonate with them and make you stand out, that's the differentiate,
Mhm.
right? That is, it's so important, because in addition to making it about them so they connect with you and you resonate, it also connects with differentiate, because everyone else is saying the same stuff. So you want to be different.
Yeah, and you're also giving them a little peek into more of your like principles, that authenticity, the deeper part of you, instead of that surface level um, stuff that I feel like a lot of people get, especially when you're competing in sales. Um, I really love everything you just said.
I was so
Yay.
Charlene, do you not like email? Like if you had to tell somebody, you're like, hey, if you have the chance to call somebody or email somebody, you're going to say call them 100% of the time. Or is there?
No, actually, although the last line in the book is pick up the damn phone.
Yeah.
um, that said, it's, principle number one: always know your goal. What my goal and intention in every interaction. The goal of the email is not to sell. The goal of the email is to get a meaningful conversation, so you can really learn about them and establish mutual fit, and then see what happens, right?
Mhm.
And essentially what you're trying to do is earn the right to sell when the sort of the sales part comes into it. But early on, yeah, if you're trying to sell over email, and again, if the email is about you and how great you are and what you do for
Mhm.
buyers or what you do for sellers, that's just it's not an effective use of the medium, because we know that buyers buy based on emotion, and then they justify with facts and logic. In real estate, this is true more than almost any other industry.
Mhm.
So if we know that we have to connect with them emotionally, the chances of you doing that over email is pretty slim.
Yeah.
And also logistically, using an email to get a meaningful conversation where you can do that, that makes sense. So the reality is you have to email, call, email, call. You're going to have to reach out multiple times, because people are just
Mixture.
busy. Even if they want to
Right.
talk to you, I can't tell you how I have like a list of people I need to call back, and I just don't have time. So I
Yeah.
want them to call me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll hit those principles. I know, Amanda, you mentioned earlier. So
I,
that
that's
first
actually what I was just going to say. I'd
cool.
really like to get in more get into those principles, because I feel like once you kind of understand all the principles, then you just carry those into everything. And so much of
Mhm.
everything is in intention. What is your intention? What is the intention behind us here today talking about this? Our intention is to learn about you and how and your unique gift and ability that you're offering the world. And clearly you were meant to do, because otherwise you wouldn't it seems like you love it.
I do. I get it's like it's a very odd. Like again, it's like how did this happen? But yeah, I know it's really because it I see it really connects to, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a brain-based success coach. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do in sales is undo people's head trash about what selling is and make it so it's not so hard. I mean, I think we just put so much pressure on ourselves to like, again, if you think if you're putting so much pressure on an email to sell for you, gosh, that's a hard email to write. When you know all you have to do is connect and be caring with the other person and ask for a meaningful conversation to see what happens, like take the pressure off, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so number one is I'm clear on my intention and goal before every interaction. So we talked about that a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is I am leading conversations with caring, curiosity, and connection. And the caring and the curiosity are really the key points there. And what that means is even if you're a brand new sales rep or you're brand new in the industry, being curious is really your number one job. And you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to even know a lot about whatever it is you're selling right up front. I mean, you have to get there to build the credibility, or you have to have resources around you can bring in. But really what people want in a conversation is like, this should be like, I'm in seventh heaven because I get to just talk about myself and what I do, right? So this is so much fun. Can you imagine if every sales interaction, your buyer felt like they were the guest on your podcast, right? Like how amazing would they feel about that? But what happens is the reverse ends up happening where the salesperson thinks it's their job to convince, to sell, to say the right things. And so they do most of the talking. And so they're really making themselves the hero of the story instead of the buyer.
It's so true.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I when I first started, I got into this thing where I knew more about the mortgage business than they did, obviously, on a first-time home buyer. And I quickly recognized this. I would talk and talk and talk, and I'm like, all right, what questions do you have? And they're like, I don't even know what they're like, I don't even. So now it's just like, you tell me your story and what you want to do. And then they just go into this, we really want to buy a house and we want to do this and we want to do that. And they start going on. And then I just kind of go, all right, let's just talk about this. We'll talk about that. And it's been a way more effective way of having these conversations. I can tell you that. But yeah.
Well, that's the curiosity piece is allowing them to open up and you expressing curiosity about their situation. And the way that you do that most effectively is by asking questions that you genuinely want to know about. And then the connection just comes out of all of that.
Right.
The curiosity. I've never heard that before. I love that.
I love curiosity.
Yeah, when I hire salespeople for companies, I mean, that's what I look for is curiosity, because once you do that, that's all gold. That's how you're setting up all your shots. Because down the line, when you're showing them a home, for example, instead of saying, here's a room you could use for any purpose, blah, 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 you could say, ooh, and I remember you mentioned that you're really into Dungeons and Dragons. This is a small space, but I'll tell you what, right? This room here, this is a bonus room. This is your D&D room, like,
love Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But that's like, you're not going to get there. Or even if they say like early on, you had this conversation, they said, yeah, I worked with this realtor because he was a friend of the family and he really let me down, blah, blah, blah. Later on in the interaction or later on in your transaction, when they say, actually, we decided to go with like this guy from work because I feel obligated, you could say to them, well, of course, we want you, the goal is for you to get the house of your dreams. So that's great. And I remember when we first met, you mentioned that you used someone who was kind of a friend of the family, and it didn't work out that great. So I'm curious, what do you think will be different about this interaction? And again, my goal is I want you to be taken care of. If it's not me, it better be somebody good, because I'll tell you what, I'll be really upset if you don't get taken care of. Right? But you can't have that kind of conversation if you don't do all of the upfront listening and curiosity and digging.
Right. I've actually won deals that way where I lost the deal. Like, Chris, we had a builder had a better deal. And I'm like, oh, great. At the end of the day, I just want you to get into your home. And I still put them on my leads list. And sure enough, this year I had like 3 or 4 where I called up. I'm like, hey, I just want to see how your closing went. Hope everything went well. And 2 of them were like, Chris, oh my God, that's great. And by the way, I want to refinance. I've been trying to get a hold of my lender. He won't call me back. So I'd love to work with you. And I'm like, great, let's do it. And even my boss is like, all right, I got to remember when I lose a deal to still it makes sense to check up a few months down the road, because you never know, just showing that you care.
Yep. And the next time you send that email, instead of saying, I just wanted to see, you're going to say,
oh, no, just that's the kneecap word.
That.
Yeah.
Can you say that again, Charlene? When we
Yeah,
last,
so instead of saying I just wanted to see how it went, like it's about you and you're curious that way. It's, oh, when we last spoke, you were about to close with this builder. How did that go?
How did that go?
Right?
Yeah.
Because that connects to the next principle, number 3, which is I am always confident in myself, my mission, and the value I provide. And when you lead with confidence, you don't need to say words like just, you don't have to back off, you don't have to justify. You just coming from such an authentically confident, caring place that in that instance, the reason why people say, oh, just checking in to see how it went, like it's just like, long shot here, but maybe it didn't go well, and it's really about you. And you
Yeah.
can
Right.
hear the head trash like coming out when you do that. And instead saying, oh wow, yeah, you made this decision. So you're validating the decision. How did it go?
Yeah.
Or were
Can
there
you
any,
repeat? I am always confident in myself.
myself, my mission, and the value I provide.
And Charlene, how does that tie into fear? You mentioned in one of those other podcasts I heard list to, fear. I have it written down. You're only really in fear of being dropped or loud noises. And
that's true. Yeah, you're only born with those 2 fears. Those are your only 2 fears that are innate to human beings.
When you're an infant.
When you're an infant, you're born being afraid of being dropped and afraid of loud noises. That's it.
I'm still afraid of loud noises.
Right. Well, it's not your fault.
I'm afraid of heights too. But can you connect that into this always being confident? That's a hard thing for people to do, I think, to have
And
that
I
mindset.
think that these really, you can't have number 3 without number 1 and number 2. You have to be clear in your intention and your goal. Once you have, and then as long as you're leading with caring and a curiosity, fostering that connection, it's just there. It exists and you don't even need to. So that's kind of where the principles, getting clear on your values, getting clear on the way that you like to do things, which might look different from other people. And then you're just showing up as yourself authentically. And there's really nothing to be, you will attract just everything you need based on that. And so there's nothing to be scared of anymore.
Right, you're right. And then the reality is, though, to Chris's point, the fear is learned. So throughout our lives, different things happen to us where, fear, it is an adaptive behavior. And so, even showing up authentically, our authentic self might be, scared as, stuff.
Scared to
right?
do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is to figure out, like, what am I afraid of? Where did this come from? And is it true? And so, for example, in sales, a lot of people say, well, I don't like to call strangers because I'm afraid of being rejected. And so that tells me that and I love you, Amanda, that you're connecting the dots here. You're like, A+ student here. But that connects to the first thing. What are you afraid of being rejected about? If you reach out to someone and you have confidence in your value and your mission, and all you're trying to do is connect with them, make an authentic, caring connection, and ask them for a meaningful conversation. Like if somebody's not willing to, react to your offer of love and wanting to just have a connection with them, no matter what the outcome, then you know what, next,
Thank you, next, move on, because guess what? I'm ready to go serve someone. I'm ready to go connect and develop a long-term relationship with with people that come into my life and add value and create that deeper connection. And so much of that, I feel like, really does come down to obviously your principles, but then just like deep listening and deep caring. And of course, so much of that starts with self. And like when you talk about fear, Chris, because fear is learned, you really do have to get to the core of what are my core fears. And they have nothing to do with your job. You have to dig those out from wherever the stories came from, and then squash those, the origin of that story, in order to be able to really flourish in sales. But in essence, we're all in sales,
right?
And so I think that once you kind of I said that's the work, right?
Yeah, because that's if you're, for example, if you're reaching out to someone and they just say not interested, that means either they're, like they
That
about
happened
who
last
they
week.
are, what their life like. What, you had that this week? Yeah.
I literally called a lead and I just like, hey, this is Chris Murphy from Caliber Home Loans. And before I even got done with loans, it was, I don't have time, and like hung up. And I was like, I looked at my system, I'm like, I'm not sure that one's going to work out. We'll just put that one aside.
Well, it could, so I have two, when I'm doing coaching on this, I have like, there's two different ways to look at it. Sometimes they're just not your people, and it's just not somebody you want to deal with.
Yep.
And sometimes if, depending on who your target is, this is why really understanding the psychographic, the thoughts and lives and feelings of the people you serve. Some people just are genuinely already so stressed out and overwhelmed and have so much on their plate that when you call them and you say something home loans, they could literally be needing a loan at that moment, or they could literally be needing a home at that moment. And yet, like, they just are so overwhelmed, they don't want to deal with it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just, unless if they don't hang up on me right away, if they hang up, I would send them an email.
Yeah.
But if you say, absolutely, I 100% know right now is not, you're not going to have time now to talk to me. May I send you an email with suggested for a couple of times when we could talk, because
also here's a meditation track.
Yeah. And also, well, I'll tell you what, I mean, that you're not wrong. I mean, a lot of people that I, have as like prospects in the past, I've sent a lot of people meditations, I have to tell you, or 15-minute nap videos, so clearly, I caught you at a time when you were very busy, feeling you sounded a little stressed out. See, I'm anchoring emotion. And perhaps this will help. If there's a time in the future where it would make sense to have a conversation about some of your financial goals, or, what your ultimate retirement home looks like, whatever, let's connect, and I don't push too hard in that case, but I do try to stand out. I try to differentiate. And I don't always, some people will automatically just be like, what a jerk,
Yeah.
I lead with that caring and that connection. I say, you know what, gosh, that guy's having a rough day. Like, let me see if I can make it better.
Yeah. Because it's about them, not you.
Right. How many times you mentioned, like, it takes 8 to 12 times you have to be persistent. And I know you've talked about this in some of those other podcasts, but that just seems like a very fine line. I've read books, I've said, if you get a lead on a Monday, you better call them on a Tuesday. And then if they don't call you on Tuesday, call them on Wednesday, Thursday. If they don't have you by Thursday, you've lost it and it's done. I'm like, I personally don't believe in that philosophy, but persistence, following up, and what is too much and what is not enough. If you wait a week before you call them back again, or email, is that too long, or what's the research and the follow-up process?
Yeah. Technically it's 5 days. Okay. It's about the amount of time that can go by where they forget you exist.
Okay.
You're just off the radar. It's technically 5 days. So I have, in the book, I do actually have a little diagram where I have a suggested process. And I'll say, so principle number 4, this ties into that.
Perfect.
Is I am consistently and clearly securing the next step. So you start with your intention in number 1, and then number 4, you're always kind of moving it forward one way or the other. I'll tell you more specifically where that really comes into play, but relative to this, if I leave somebody an email, I will say, I know, connect to how busy they are. I know you might be too busy to even answer this email. I will commit to giving you a call, tomorrow in the morning. If you prefer, I call you in the afternoon, please let me know. Mm-hmm. And then that way I've sort of like tested the waters a little bit. I've said I'm going to call them, and I've given them an option, and I've stayed true to my goal of trying to get on the phone with them. And likewise, if I leave them a voicemail, I'll say, I'll do this. I'll send you an email with some times that we can potentially talk. The times I suggest don't work. Let's find a different time.
That's a huge.
When I send what's that?
Go ahead, Charlene. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, then when I send the email after the phone call, instead of saying like, I'm just following up on my email, my voicemail, I say, as promised, here are some times we might be able to connect. What works best for you?
Yeah. Can you repeat that principle real quick?
So I am consistently and clearly securing the next step. Where this comes into play, this is something that I've literally never met a salesperson that hasn't benefited from this, because one of the biggest complaints, even really great salespeople who are great at creating those conversations, have great conversations, is when they expect a sale to happen or they expect it to move forward and then it doesn't. you get ghosted. I'm sure both of you have been ghosted in your career, right?
Oh, sure.
Right?
I always feel like it's probably a blessing anyway.
It could be. And also the main reason that happens is you let them, And
Yeah,
so,
well,
yeah.
yeah.
The goal is, so that this is what I spend a lot of time on my coaching, is every single time you get the conversation. So someone agrees to talk to you, you do not hang up the phone. You do not leave. Used to be coffee shops. Don't do that much anymore, but you don't leave that meeting without securing the next meeting, no matter what they say, right? No matter what they say, because even if they say, well, I got to talk to my partner, I've got to do
What do you say to that?
Yeah, I say, great. That makes absolute sense. So I validate them always
Yep.
and say, so what is there a certain time when that usually happens? Or I know for my husband, I like Sunday morning in the jacuzzi, if I ever with coffee, like if I ever want to really have a good conversation with him, I'm going to catch him Sunday morning in the jacuzzi.
So is that the trick? Jacuzzi and coffee? I'm trying to figure it out still.
It is. I'm telling you, anytime. So then, in that case, if somebody says, well, let's talk tomorrow, like, well, I'm not going to talk to him till Sunday. So so you want to ask them, like, what does that conversation look like? When do you expect to have that conversation? Like in a nice, friendly way.
Yeah.
Say, well, we usually do jacuzzi on Sunday morning. Say, well, let's do this. I want you to enjoy your Sunday. So let's connect like Monday, like afternoon, evening, what's best for you.
I was just going to say, one of the best things I've done in the last couple of years to solidify a meeting is I used to start out going, hey, I've got time Thursday morning. Does that work for you? No.
You started with I.
Well, I, and then now I said, listen, I'm only available these particular times. And they go, you know what? That's great. Let's do 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. I don't give them the option of just kind of this broad stroke of like, hey, let me know when you're available. And I've been able to lock. It's a total game changer. It just say, hey.
Yeah, you should always give like 3 different options. Couple times. Definitely. Yeah. But
it's just like, hey, I could do these times. Does that work? And they usually are like, yes, I'll do it right there.
How would you change that wording, Charlene?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really, I would say something like, I'm sure, you're super busy and of course I get booked up too. Would you happen to be available on this time or this time?
Okay. Would you happen to be available?
I would sort of make it more about like, ooh, like I'm super busy, but it's not really about me. Like that's where I might kind of finesse it a little bit.
Okay.
The other thing that I really hate is when someone just sends me, they're selling to me,
right?
And they say, hey, I'd like to sell you something. Click on my calendar link so I can get a meeting, right? I'm kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So what I say instead is, if I want to use the calendar links, it can actually be pretty convenient. I'll say, what's your preferred method for booking a meeting? If it's easiest for you, you can go to this link or tell me, if these, if you don't have a couple of days specifically in mind, or if it's been, let's say, a referral where it's a warm intro and you don't have to try so hard, but at the same time, you still want to make it about them, make it feel like you're there to make their life easier. They're not there to make your life easier.
Right.
Yeah.
To your point though, before, Chris, about like how often is too often, the key thing is you're only bothering them. You're only being annoying if you're bothering them and being annoying. So that's why it's so important, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, if I was expecting, test results from my doctor, I would want him to call me like as much as it took for me to get in touch, right? So, but the important thing is to use a multi-touch, multimodal approach. So multiple touches over the period of time with no more than 5 days between touches in all different ways. So phone, email, send them a card, drop cookies off at their house, hide in the bushes. But no, I'm just kidding.
What book is that? Really I never read that in any book.
Right. And then you could say things like, the reason for my professional persistence is that when we first spoke, you mentioned that you have your lease ending, in 2 weeks. And so
I'm worried that you won't have a place to live. And I think we need to get started on that sooner than later, because I don't want you to be find yourself in a situation that isn't best for you and your family.
Exactly. So it's always the urgency is for them. And that phrasing, the reason for my professional persistence is, or when we last spoke, or when we first spoke, always connecting it to, hey, you're the one that started this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you can tell me to go away anytime and I'll listen to you, but this is my job.
Yeah. And even with that though, Amanda, I'm always careful, when I get those emails, like, just tell me and I'll go away. You know what? I care enough that I am actually not going to go away that easily, because I understand what it's like to be so busy, so overwhelmed that your tendency is to want to procrastinate things that feel big. And this is a big decision. And I totally get that. And also I'm here for you. Like I'm going to stick by your side. I'm not letting you go, because it's not about me. It's about me wanting to make sure that you're taken care of. And so although it feels scary, although it feels big, please know that you have a partner in me and that I'm here for you every step of the way. So I'd say something like that.
I love that.
No,
so principle number 4 is I am consistently and clearly securing the next step, which is also, I love that, because you're making a commitment to yourself, the next goal that you need to meet in that, you're always taking the next step forward, which obviously is key to any owning your own business. Are there more principles?
Nope, just those 4. That's
it.
Awesome. Yep, that's it. And you'll see everything we talk about always comes down to one of those things, right?
Yeah. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple platforms, Charlene. First one, BombBomb. Do you know about BombBomb?
I don't use BombBomb.
So I haven't done it, but I've heard great things about it. It's basically instead of you're sending a video in the format of an email. So yes, you record it, say hi. I just want to introduce myself. Have you? I haven't done it yet, but it seems like a great form. Like, you're having this video connection with them instead of this generic email.
Yeah, I haven't used a tool to do that, but I send a lot of videos. I love videos.
You do videos, yeah.
And then the key thing is to make sure that when you're doing the video that you're also using that very you-centered language, that, thank you so much for your inquiry. You mentioned that you were looking for X and X. The first step, everyone I work with is a busy professional, and I know you get a lot to think about. So we're going to take it one step at a time here. Don't worry. Like I do like the there, it's going to be okay. So we're going to take it one step at a time. The first step is simply a conversation, just to learn more about you and just take the pressure way off. So but you can get that across. You can see I can smile and I can, be caring, and you can get that across much better in a video than on email.
Absolutely.
And that goes back to the multi-touch, multimodal delivery forms. So maybe one of your forms, I use a lot of voice, like I actually record memos instead of, because texting, it takes too long. Also, you can't convey tone. And so I use a lot of maybe a voice recording, but then sometimes a video, and then an email, maybe a simple text, or so multi-touch, multimodal, and of course in the digital, in the marketing world, video is king. So anytime you can do video over anything else, that's gonna be more effective.
What you're doing with audio is also really smart, because again, people buy based on emotion, they justify with facts and logic. And your point about tone, I'm thinking of, I have a friend who's a realtor, and she's constantly in these weird situations where buyers are mad at her because she didn't convey something, or she was too terse, or they think she's being rude. And it's just because she's a very to the facts kind of person.
Clerical and
and her emails do come across as she's mad at them. And I'm like, dude, read this. But if you heard her say it, if she would just say it instead of writing it, I think then they would get more of that friendly tone. It's just, again, email is a very, it's a limited tool. So you have to use it where it's helpful and also know its limitations.
Do you like text message? Because I noticed some of my real estate agents and people, I'll send them an email or call them and get nothing. I send them a text. 2 minutes later, oh, hey, Chris, thanks so much.
I can't. I like talking on the phone.
Yeah, Amanda, you're not one of them.
I'm just it takes too much time. Yeah. I'm I want to get this done so I can move on to the next person that I need to put out a fire with. And the whole back and forth texting things, no, let's just get on the phone and talk about it, hash it out really quick, so I don't have to sit here and look at my phone all day waiting for you to text me back. I can't stand that.
I know. Really, but there are people that love it.
And Charlene, you say pick up the damn phone. Let's use it. Let's talk on the phone. Once there's one too many emails that get started, I'm if I'm sending an email asking clarifying questions because the first email that someone sent me didn't answer all of my questions to begin with, it's time to pick up the phone.
Yeah. Or if you're tempted to type that email that says, per my email, per my email below, I said, yeah, I think again, it really is about your buyer and what they want. You know, I have a 21-year-old daughter who, you know, she'll text me to find out what's for dinner, you know, so I mean, so, you know, there's certain people who, you know, they're more comfortable on text. It feels easier. So I would always default to what someone else wants. And that's why when you're securing the next step, you're going to also establish the best way to communicate. What's their preferred method of communication?
Yeah.
What do they want? And again, if you're texting, I wouldn't be like texting and texting and texting someone to get the first meeting. It's just part of that multimodal, multi-touch approach.
Multi-touch. And kind of to tie that in, kind of to wrap this part up, but like, you got Instagram, you got Facebook, you got TikTok.
TikTok.
Right. TikTok all day long. If you were to tell like a new client, a real estate agent, lender, of those 3 platforms, you think TikTok right now is the best?
I think Instagram is probably the best.
Okay.
TikTok, you know, it has its limitations if you're regionally focused. So you have to make sure that you have a way to kind of fine tune that.
Okay.
But yeah, Instagram, because it's so visual and it's, you know, it's a snapshot. And I think even though people do use it to sell, I don't know, there's just something about it that feels more connected.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just something about Instagram that works really well in real estate. TikTok though is up and coming for sure. And you can build a much bigger following much faster.
Right.
I mean, I was sharing that I just started a few months ago, and as of now, it's over 20,000 followers. Booked a lot of business through TikTok. The key is to be a person. So be human. You don't want to get on there and just be like, look at this home. Isn't it great? You know,
you don't do a dance in front of a house. I was just go out there these random.
You know what? I bet that would work great. I don't personally do any of the dances because I'm already embarrassing my children enough. All they need.
I wouldn't do it either.
On TikTok.
I love it, Charlene. The last I want to just touch on. You had a story in one of your podcasts where your boss told you were too jolly and be more serious. Can you tell us that story?
Oh my gosh! But this goes directly back to when I said never did I suck more than when somebody gave me a script. And then I just, I've worked for bosses where they had their methodology, you had to work through these 5 steps and be very serious. And so it was one of my first sales calls and I was actually building the business, but it was actually the CEO funder of the business. I felt this pressure to impress, but he got on, he was listening to me on the phone and I was doing my thing like, hey, how you doing? Like we're doing here, and very, try to be laid back and caring and friendly. And he, on my presentation, trying to be curious. I was asking about them. I was asking, digging for emotional real estate, if you will. And I knew what I was doing. I wasn't just like totally, just being like social, but yeah, on my presentation, wrote in big black letters, too jolly, be more serious, And so of course, once I closed that deal, I framed the contract next to the too jolly, be more serious. And I was like, ha!
I love that.
Yeah, because really, if you're not having fun you're not in joy, you're not really in flow, and you're not, I don't feel like you're able to really authentic. There's a time to be serious, but honestly, at the end of the day, like, I feel like we take a lot of things just way too seriously, and we could lighten up and reach solutions more effectively if we just had a little bit more fun with it.
Well, it depends on your personality. I mean, that's my personality. The people that I attract and that I work with are generally positive people.
Yeah.
And all that. And yet, you know what? I have clients that are very serious and their customers are very serious, and they connect on that. They want bulleted emails. They want to get to the point, and that's their jolly is actually like analyzing data or like identifying a perfect agenda. Like, I think that the point is to know who your people are, know who you are, and make sure there's alignment between the two.
I love that. That's so true.
Who is your ideal client, your client avatar? Some like people, I'm reaching out to you for the first time, and who are you attracting that you can help the most?
Yeah, they're just, really smart. I love working with people who enjoy the intellectual challenge, so we can have conversations where I can push them to think slightly differently, and they're not going to get defensive or shut down. So really smart, ambitious people who are looking for that good to great. They've already achieved a certain amount of success. So it's not like they're struggling. I'm not I'm not, on any life-saving missions here. This is millionaire mindset, people who are looking to be the best at everything they do. And I would say most of my clients also do have like a slightly spiritual side. Maybe not way woo-woo, although I can definitely go there. But, if I suggest to them to meditate or do positivity affirmations or abundance affirmations, or we talk about laws of attraction, they're going to be there with me for that. Right. And
this is my gratitude affirmations log right here.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And really high value services. And I would consider real estate it's all about high value service. Right?
One of the highest values, gosh, especially right now. So
like
I guess
widgets, like people who make like widgets and parts, sometimes it doesn't always work great. Although one of my best clients is a reseller. They have an e-commerce shop online where they sell stuff. Mm-hmm. But again, what really sells the stuff in their very expensive pool tables and gaming equipment and gym equipment. But really what he's selling is the services and creating an experience. And so that's what we focus on.
Mm-hmm.
I just ordered a hot tub. Speaking of jacuzzi.
You just ordered a hot tub? Oh
like
my
while
God.
we were talking, like just now while we were talking.
No, not now. Last week I went down and like placed a deposit down on one. My son is meeting a goal that I told him if he met it, I would buy a hot tub. I don't know what I was thinking.
My boy, that's
but so much of like my decision around the brand, like the quality of the product that I decided to go with was the company and the experience and how the customer service. And I'm like, I just want to know that I have someone here for me in this department if and when I need it. And I can call up Joe and ask him, because
Joe the hot tub guy.
Yeah, Joe the hot tub guy.
Nice.
And they create an experience behind a high value item. And I think so much of that is like what we do every single day. Like with our clients, we're like, we need you going back to resonating with people, differentiating and finding ways to stand out and substantiate. It's really simple, really, at the end of the day.
That's why it's much fun for me, because I get to make it easier than people are making it. They're like, again, if you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong, right? So
Amanda brought up something about goals, and we talked about this on our last podcast. So I'm reading a book called Atomic Habits, and James Clear, the author, he really kind of gives, he's not a big fan of goals. He gave a good example of like, if your goal is to run a marathon, you run, you train, you run the marathon, and then when you're done, you go back to eating hamburgers and French fries. So he's like, it's all about creating habits that are lasting. Quick thought on that, on goal setting. Are you a believer in that?
Totally agree. So I think it is important to have something to shoot for, make sure it's big enough. Most people do not think big enough. I was at a conference once when I was first year in my business on my own, when I had no paycheck and I was crying in my Cheerios. And they said, well, how much money do you want to make every month? And I had done some math to figure out like how much I needed to pay my bills and, like not be struggling. And so I kind of put that number down, and they were like, no, really, like what is your goal? Like really think about this. What do you want to achieve? Because you'll achieve what you want to achieve. And so I crossed out the number I had, and I did the math on $1 million a year, and I put $83,333 a month, because that's how the math worked out. And I had such an internal conflict. I looked at that and I was like, $83,000 a month, I could never make that. Like, that's crazy. And I crossed it out. And it was like literally just like an exercise with a room full of strangers, and I was struggling that much, right? Yeah. And I've seen it over and over, especially millionaire mindset. There's 11 million millionaires in the United States, and more every day, especially since COVID. There's more millionaires now than ever. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it.
Absolutely.
And so it starts with having a goal. But to your point, just like a revenue goal of how much you want to make in a company or in your business, that's what we call a lagging indicator. The goal is good to have something to shoot for. The leading indicators are the activities and the habits and the things you do every day.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that's why you have to, there is math involved. I'm not a big fan of dialing for dollars. Anybody who tells you you're going to make 100 calls a day to get 10 meetings to book one deal, they're out of their mind, because I am not wasting 90% of my time.
I love hearing that.
So I want to be as effective as possible, but there is some math involved. Like I've got to make a certain number of calls, even if I convert at 90%. And I want to close,
That goes back to what you were saying earlier about forcing things versus just allowing it. The ease. There is something to be said for just not going out and forcing yourself and really just allowing the things to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, you have to do the work and you have to show up.
Right. And also there is a certain amount of outreach. But for example, one of my big mantras is small things done over great things planned. Small things done over great things planned. And that's true whether it comes down to working out, eating, sales. I'm better off making, I make a commitment. I reach out to 2 people on LinkedIn every day. They're people I've worked with before, people from high school. I'm not like trying to sell to them. I'm looking at something on their profile. I'm looking at something they posted. I'm making a comment. I'm reaching out saying, hey, great article. What inspired you? What connected with you on that article? Or congratulations on your job move. What inspired you to make the switch? I do 2 a day. And I'll tell you what, I've booked hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business off people on LinkedIn just because years ago I reached out to them and I've kept in touch. And
that takes you less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's so true. And like to Amanda's point, it's not that hard. It's simple. These are simple little things.
Yeah.
You're not calling 100 people a day. You're reaching 2 people on LinkedIn, and it's generated hundreds of thousands of dollars.
2 people a day, every single day. That's one of the rules. Same thing with social media, 15 minutes a day, every single day. So I do a TikTok video every day. I have an assistant who helps with Twitter and Facebook. We do every single day. And then Instagram is like my personal little project. So that one I do when I'm inspired to. I do sunrises, the jacuzzi photos of the sunrises from the jacuzzi, my cats. And then I also do some business. Do we have time for me to give you my quick social media formula?
Yeah, do it.
Yes.
Come on. Absolutely.
So because I am a huge fan, I get all of my business in 2 places: social media and referrals. That's it. It surprises people to know I do 0 marketing. I don't have a list. I don't send blast emails. I don't pay for advertising. I do none of that. Right. But the social media is like my favorite because, again, to my point before I was talking about TikTok videos, whatever you sell, if all you post is about what you sell. I also work with a lot of network marketers they become so invested in these products and you've seen them on your Facebook where they're like, here I am drinking my shake. Here I'm at Disney drinking my shake. Like, I just worked out. Now I'm going to have my shake. And after a while, you're just like, stop. Right. So there's a 4-post formula. So the idea is that you sort of mix up your posts. It doesn't have to be exact science, but over time, you sort of see that you have a mix of the informational. So this is where you are purely trying to be a trusted advisor, the expert in the field. You're posting about mortgage rates. You're posting about trends in home buying. You're posting about curb appeal, whatever it might be, right? Staging, whatever the topic is. And it has nothing to do with you. It's just you being helpful, sharing information.
You're the professional. I got this information.
Education.
Yep.
Industry-based education.
Yep. So that's one type. And again, you see people, that's all they do, and that's a mistake. The second type is inspirational. Inspirational quotes, beautiful photography, inspiring thoughts, personal, sort of like breakthroughs that you've had, your aha moments.
Would that be like a realtor saying, hey, we just closed on this house, and you have the picture of the family outside the house?
I actually don't see that as being inspirational so much, but it could be.
That's still industry based.
It could be a picture of like a couple hugging, and in front of a smaller house and saying, have a quote about, sometimes,
I got you.
Small dreams are big moments or something.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it's more, the idea is to touch the heart.
The heart. I was just going to say it's more heart centered. Yeah.
Heart-centered, inspirational, something that makes people feel inspired.
So industry-based education, I would say that's more business, brain,
so it's information, inspiration. The third one is personal. So give people insight into who you are. Don't be afraid. I'll very proactively post pictures of me with my tattoo, because
nice.
That's my identity. Post pictures of my cats, my sunrise, living on the lake, it's just like letting people know, because people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Absolutely.
And, I put your like safety at risk and say like, here's my address, come over for coffee.
It's really cute because Chris constantly brags about his wife on social media. And I bet like, you know, if we really want to talk about like post engagement and stuff like that, stuff that I know matters, but I hate. I bet those posts that when you brag about your wife and her amazing food blog and all the amazing food your beautiful wife cooks you all the time, people are probably like, oh, that's
spoiled,
so
Charlene. I'm spoiled.
Yes.
And you probably get more attention.
I'll be following you now if it's food related for sure.
Yeah, May's
so
menu. There's a plug right there.
Number 3 was personal posts.
Yep. So information, inspiration, personal, and then the last one's promotional. That's Chris, where you have like, we just sold this house, so happy, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like, you know, call me today, but you know, it can be. So I think every once in a while you want to ask for the sale, you know, ask for the contact.
I love this. I've never even seen anything like this in terms of your the 4-post formula for social media.
Because she's a rebel and she's doing things the way that
I want to make so when you do this, and our listeners are out there, so you have, you know, be the expert, inspiration, personal, promotional. Are you doing that like Facebook? I'll do something right here on Instagram. Are you doing the same content on all platforms?
You need the mixture on all platforms.
Mixture.
So I use an editorial calendar. So I do plan it out, and I have an assistant who helps me. And so, you know, I'm not here to like agonize over this stuff, because if it's too processed, I just won't do it, because I'm that perfectionistic like paralysis, you know. But you know, I have to like manage it somehow. I can't just like wake up every morning like, what should I post today? You know, sometimes I do that actually. But yeah, it's, you know, basically it's kind of like, as I look at kind of planning out the week, we just kind of look like, have I covered the bases? And some weeks it might be 2 information things and a promotional, you know, it's kind of like over the time, if you were to look at like my timeline,
the key is be consistent.
A good healthy mix.
Nice. At the end of the day, you got to consistently do it. You do it for a month and stop it.
I think once a day, like I really think, you know, Facebook, maybe you can get away with every other day if you really don't have time. Twitter, I post at least once a day, and I try to also retweet. Twitter's not as valuable as it once was for me for some reason.
I was just gonna say, I didn't even mention Twitter. It's so funny. All those things I wrote down, I didn't even mention Twitter.
It used to be a really, like when I first started my business, I actually did a lot with Twitter. So now it's more on trying to maintain my audience, basically. Yeah.
I just feel like Twitter's just got a real negative vibe to it.
I feel that way about Facebook lately.
Oh,
yeah, I would say the same.
Don't even get me started. Okay, Charlene, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find out more about you, and where can they grab a copy of your book?
Yeah.
So I am the easiest person to find online. One of the biggest tips somebody ever gave me when I started my business and I was creating a personal brand. I still had a job, by the way, when I created my Charlene Ignites brand. But one of the things they said is make sure that the URL is available and that the name is available on all social media platforms.
Of your name.
Like whatever name you choose for your business, whatever name you choose.
Okay.
If you want to use your own name, that's fine. So I am consistent. So I'm everywhere as Charlene Ignites, IGNITES. I'm Charlene Ignites on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, my website, probably Pinterest, YouTube. I also put my TikTok videos on YouTube, usually if they're business related. And then the book, you can go to my website. It's probably the easiest, charleneignites.com or Amazon. It's on audiobook too. My audiobook just came out last week.
Did you read it?
I did not. I hired a voice actor.
You could have, the next book, I'll be your voice actor because I live in a recording studio and I love reading books. So I would read your book for you.
All right.
He has an amazing studio, I will say. That's where we used to record.
Okay, so it's Charlene Ignites everywhere. Just type in Charlene Ignites and it will take you to where you need to be. And the name of the book is The Email Cemetery, where bad sales emails go to die and how to resuscitate yours. Whoever came up with that name. And great work. And when did you release that book?
So it's been out a year, and then the audiobook just came out last week. And so the next thing I'm working on is a deck of cards based on the email cemetery with what not to say on one side and what to say instead. So Amanda, you can get that for Chris next year.
Perfect.
And then also a workbook. So you can actually kind of workbook your emails, workbook through your mindset, message, and method.
I feel so like blessed to have you today, because I feel like you get like so much value jam packed. And I know we went over a little bit, and thank you.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
Thank you so much for joining us. And
yeah, Charlene, thank you.
Yeah, I guess I know you probably have another appointment. So
I just realized I have a client at 11, so I'm going to run.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlene. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Bye.